The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills. We're in Tower 1 of the Warner Center. This is the new home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters, and it's also the new home for Autism Live. We're coming to you from Tower 1, the 18th floor, our new studio. Thrilled to be in our new home. Loving to hear from you guys. I know many people on both sides of the argument. Do you like the handprints? Do you like the old background? We're loving hearing from you. We're going back and forth on it, and we'll keep you posted on what we decide to do. In any case, normally on a Thursday I start out the show and we hit the jargon of the day and all of those things right from the jump. We're going to postpone that a little bit today because we want to do something really special today. I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it on Monday. I think a lot of you, because it's a new show, new day, that you missed our fabulous new program on our ever-expanding Autism Live network that is called On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. So we have decided in this first hour this morning that we're going to replay it because we thought it was really remarkable. We thought Matt did a great job. And his very special guest, it's very timely, Jonas Rivera, who is the producer of Inside Out. Yes, the hit Disney Pixar film of the summer. Really amazing what it's doing for the autism community, unintentionally. But I think you're going to enjoy seeing this interview with Jonas and hearing, I missed something huge in the film. I think it's a really big secret. Some people caught it, but a lot of us didn't. And Jonas reveals something that's behind the scenes about that secret. So it's enlightening on two different levels. So we're going to show that. Then when we come back, we are going to do the jargon of the day. We've got a great show for you. We're going to have our new segment, Love My Provider, with Sarah Gershfeld. She is going to be with us. And then at 11:40, I'm so excited because we've got an incredible guest. Dr. Jed Baker is going to be with us. And he is the author of the new book, getting a lot of hype. I know as we've been talking about this week, a lot of people have been writing in saying, oh my gosh, this is the book that we need, Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. And it's a book for all kids, but it very specifically addresses autism spectrum as well, and even has a section in the book that talks about what to do when you have a child who has very low receptive language. So for those of you who have kids that you can't just talk it through, oh my gosh, this is a great book. So Dr. Baker's going to be with us at 11:40 Pacific time. I know you guys are writing in questions. I'm thrilled about that. Can't wait to get into it with him. We might have to schedule another interview with him because already I've seen the interest that you guys have. But this first hour, we're going to show you what we aired on Monday so that you don't miss it. But we're here live, and we're going to be live in the next hour as well. But first, I want you to take a look. This is On the Spectrum with Matt Asner.
Hi there, and welcome to On the Spectrum. I'm Matt Asner, and this is my show. It's a show that is going to promote hope. That's, as Shannon has said many times, hope is my favorite four-letter word. And hope is what is going to drive this show. It's going to make us propel this show forward, and I'm going to need your help. So I'm going to need you to talk to me about hope and to let me know what's going on in your lives and to tell me stories about uplifting things that happen to you. We're going to have a video of the day during this hour, and we're also going to have a question of the day. And I'm going to give you that question of the day right now. The question of the day right now is, as an autism parent or an individual with autism, what gives you hope? And I'm going to give you a little time to answer that. In looking for the video of the day, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to present on my first show. There are a lot of choices out there. You guys put a lot of videos up on the internet. I looked at a lot of stuff from the Autism Speaks website. I work for Autism Speaks and believe heavily in what we're doing. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we have a little later on in this segment. I did see one video that to me really relates hope. It's of a young man having a meltdown, and he has an interaction with his dog that changes everything. And I want you to take a look at this video and enjoy it, because this is what hope is. This is what we're all here for, to find ways to make the lives of our children better, to find ways of making our lives better, to find ways of making, if you're an individual with autism, to find ways of making your life better. I mean, that's why we're here. That's what we all want. And so this video I thought was really apropos. So we're going to take a look at the video now, and then we'll talk a little bit about it after you see it. All right, so if there's a dry eye watching this right now, I don't know what are made of. That video, I watched that video and I thought, you know, we've all been in situations where our children have meltdowns. It's you know, par for the course. I remember one time I was at a local establishment and things just got out of control with my son, and we went out into the parking lot, and you know, as a parent, when that happens, you feel for your kid. You feel horrible because you know what they're going through. It's an endless amount of frustration coming out of them that they can't control it, and they know it's coming. They know it's coming, but they can't control it. And here we saw a young man having a meltdown, and his service dog calms him down. And to me, if there's anything that promotes the love of a dog, it's that video. You just see the change that comes over this young man when the dog starts to calm him down, and that's a beautiful thing. And as parents, we look for things that can do that. And you know, kudos to the parents of that young man for getting a service dog for him. Now, for my son, you know, I continue to look for things that calm him down, and he's a little better now than he was when he was younger about meltdowns. He knows when they're coming and tends to separate himself from a situation, and it gets a little easier when that happens. But I still look for things that can calm him down, and to see this young man calm down by a dog like that, not just calm down, but to see the love between a boy and his dog, and how they can make each other happy at that moment, or calm calm themselves down. It's an amazing thing, and I just wanted to start the day off with that video because I thought, what better way to start this show? So the question of the day today, I think I gave it to you. It was, as an autism parent or an individual with autism, what gives you hope? I've got a couple of answers already. The first one is from Sharon, and she says, my son's smile, his laugh, this wonderful community of parents and advocates who are all fighting for the same thing. And that's very true. Then we have others with autism who succeed. That's from Abby. And then we have from Salvador, every new day gives us a new chance to start fresh and get a little closer to being all right. Amen. And then I have one that says progress. And that's true. And speaking of progress, let's talk about progress a little bit. One of the big issues of the day, of the year, of the decade, is employment. Specifically, employment for people with disabilities, specifically employment for people with autism. This issue is paramount because we have a line of young adults coming into adulthood, and over the next 10 years, we're going to have 500,000 adults, new adults, adults that are looking for jobs, adults that are looking for housing. And we need to change the way we look at this. Employers need to change the way they look at this. We need to have a paradigm shift in this country and abroad that lets employers understand that when they hire someone with autism, they're hiring a model employee. People with autism are loyal, they are honest, they are always on time, and what better model can you have for an employee? We need to change the way we do things and employ these people because there's a 90% unemployment rate, and we've got to change that. Autism Speaks is trying to change that, and in a partnership with thespectrumcareers.com, which was started by a young man with autism, we're trying to change that. The Spectrum Careers is a job portal, kind of like a Monster or a LinkedIn, that allows individuals with autism to look for employment and also allows employers to post jobs. Site is totally free, and it's thespectrumcareers.com. And I actually did a video with my dad, a promo for it, and I'm going to run that right now, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it.
Hi, I'm Ed Asner. If you can influence the hiring practices of a company, then please listen to a strategy that will help the company's bottom line. It is a fact that people with disabilities are productive, have low absenteeism rates, are creative, follow company rules, and bring unique experiences that transform a workplace. Best of all, their employers see a positive impact on their corporate culture. And 92% of Americans view companies having people with disabilities more favorably than those that do not. Go to thespectrumcareers.com and get started. Thank you.
So I urge you to take a look at the website, thespectrumcareers.com, and if you're an employer, sign up for that website. Sign up for it. If you're looking for a job, you're on the spectrum, you're looking for a job, take a look at it. It's a good opportunity to find work, and we're hoping that it grows and grows and grows. Thespectrumcareers.com. Now, the man you saw in that video happens to be my father. And I just have to tell you, it was very difficult to get him to do that video. I had to twist his arm, and I'm really actually just joking, because the number one thing he's worried about is employment. I have a 27-year-old brother who's on the spectrum who is looking for work. It's a difficult situation. He's part of that 90% unemployed base. And we need to find employment for these people. So we are going to take a little break right now. And then when we come back, we're going to have our first guest ever on this show. And his name is Jonas Rivera, and he is the producer of a little film called Inside Out. Just a little film that's out right now called Inside Out. And we're going to talk to him about the unbelievable acceptance of Inside Out in the autism community, and just actually what a wonderful film it is. So when we come back, Jonas Rivera, we'll be right back.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of the with all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago. There were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way. That I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned
All right, we're back. Welcome back to On the Spectrum. My first guest ever is actually a good friend of my family. He also produced. His name is Jonas Rivera. He also produced a great film called Up, that I'm sure many of you have seen. And right now, he is the producer of a film called Inside Out, which is generating a lot of buzz here in the autism community. And people are really excited about it. And right now, I think we're going to take a look at the trailer. And then when we come back, we're going to have Jonas Rivera.
So, Riley, how was the first day of school?
Fine, I guess.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong. Signal the husband.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What is it, woman? What?
I'm joy. This is sadness. That's anger.
What?
This is disgust. And that's fear. We're Riley's emotions. These are Riley's memories. They're mostly happy, you'll notice, not to brag.
I wanted to maybe hold one.
What happened? Sadness?
She did something to the memory.
Is everything okay?
I don't know.
Take it back, Joy.
Trying.
Joy, no,
Let
wait.
go.
The core memories.
No.
Can I say that curse word now?
What do we do now?
Nothing's working. Why isn't it working?
We have a major problem.
Oh, I wish Joy was here.
We can fix this. We just have to get back to headquarters.
That's long-term memory. You could get lost in there.
Think positive.
Okay. I'm positive you will get lost in there.
What was that? Was it a bear?
There are no bears in San Francisco.
I saw a really hairy guy. He looked like a bear.
This place is huge. Imagination Land? No way. Dream Productions? Rainbow Unicorn? She's right there. I loved you in Fairy Dream Adventure Part 7. Okay, bye. I love you. You can't focus on what's going wrong. There's always a way to turn things around. It's broccoli.
Congratulations, San Francisco. You've ruined pizza.
Who's the birthday girl? Brain freeze!
Hang on. Riley, here we come.
So please welcome to the show, Jonas Rivera. Jonas, how are you?
I'm so good, Matt. How are you?
I'm great. First of all,
Hey, I'm here with an old pal too. Look at that.
Oh, I know him. I
Yeah.
know him. And you know what? I have one of those on my desk at work. I actually stole it from him.
Oh, good.
But no, let me tell you something. What an amazing, amazing movie. This film, I actually saw it last, I think 2 weeks ago, and I took 3 children with autism with me to see it, and it was amazing. It was just amazing. I'm from beginning to end, and I'm including the volcano short because I thought that was just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah,
So-
we're proud of that too. Thank you, and we're so proud of the movie. I've spent a good hunk of my life working on it, about 5 years all in, and I always believed in it. It was a hard movie, but now that it's out and it's being very warmly received, we're thrilled about the whole thing.
When you set out to do this, how did you come up with the aspect of a control room with the different feelings and that all kind of coming together? Because the film really sets it up very beautifully. Especially because she's a young mind.
Yeah.
She's young, so they're all kind of learning how to work together. And I thought you really did that wonderfully well. Can you talk a little bit about maybe how you guys came up with that and how that manifested itself during production?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that it worked and it felt right, because it was a lot of labor. It didn't always work that well in the story. I mean, we had to rework the story and the writing and the design numerous times, as we do with all these films, to make it work. But what we thought was important, and I think the film, this ended up in the film, was the script. You could imagine the script and the beat outline as we were coming up with this stuff without all the visuals of the movie. It leaned a lot towards science fiction, control panels and screens and buttons and knobs. And we didn't want it to feel too clinical. We wanted it to feel whimsical and fun. Pete Docter, the director, I mean, he's really the source of the story and the creator of the story. He said something early on that we really hung on to, which was he wanted this to be the mind as opposed to the brain. We didn't want it to be literal, inner space and so forth. So we just thought about, okay, we're going to personify emotions. What should they look like? How do they feel to us? And the fact that they sort of help pilot us. We did a lot of research, and one of the things we found in the research, talking to neurologists and scientists and so forth, was, and this sounds very simple, it's almost embarrassing to admit this now, but as we started off to make the movie, I didn't even think of emotions as having a reason to be, if that makes sense. I thought about emotions, but not that they would have specific jobs, but like there's a reason that you have disgust, for example. And so this idea in the research that they had jobs kind of led to the idea, well, they would have a room where they would work. They'd be coming to work every day, and they'd be doing their best to, do a good job and so forth. So all this narrative back and forth led to this idea of a control panel and what we call the consciousness screen, and how memories might work. And it was a lot of feel with a little dash of science to try to make sure that it was somewhat authentic.
Well, and you did such an incredible job in terms of casting. I mean, each of those characters, has just the perfect voice, and they're not, they're all likable. They all make sense, and you feel for every one of them, and sadness, sadness is just such a great storyline there. Talk a little bit about how the delicacy of handling that, of sadness. Because
sadness was tricky, and she's obviously an important part of the movie and a bit of a show stealer, isn't she? I mean, we again, it came up just back to the research of thinking about these characters as having jobs, and even as you say their names, like you kind of get what everyone's job would be. Like Joy's, obviously her job is to keep Riley or her kid happy. Anger made sense to us. His job is about fairness. He sort of delegates fairness and keeps things fair. And so you can imagine that inside your head. And fear even it keeps you safe. So if you were to get bitten by a dog as a kid, you'd then avoid dogs, and that's out of being safe. Disgust was interesting. It was about avoiding being poisoned, literally, like from Darwin, like that face that you make when you're disgusted is to like expel something. That felt easy to employ. But sadness, as we talked about it, it was curious. And as a parent, we thought, well, why would you want your kid to be sad? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. We do everything we can to avoid it, and so that became a fun hook to us. And thinking about, well, she'd be misunderstood, and Joy, our main character, wouldn't want anything to do with her. We originally had written her more of just a big crybaby. We thought it was funny, but every time sadness was on the screen, she would just be crying. And then when we found Phyllis Smith, who did the voice, who's such an amazing actress. Yeah, she's so funny. But what she brought this hesitancy to the character. So Phyllis says everything has a question mark on it. Like, I want to have lunch, And that, I don't know, that helped us define the character in a way that made her self-doubting, I guess.
Right. Which
felt right for the story. Sorry, long story. But
no. I think what's interesting is, and you'd certainly see this at the end of the film, and if you don't stay for credits, make sure you stay for the credits, because there's some beautiful moments in the credits. And one of the things that I don't think I'm spoiling anything by mentioning is the wonderful way you show that everyone's different. That inside everyone is different. They're all very different the way they handle it. And they're all distinct personalities inside. All the feelings are distinct personalities, but the way they handle, I guess the hierarchy inside each person is different. And I love the way you handled that. You really treated that wonderfully well. And you got the feeling. I think you get the feeling as you watch the film that her setup is going to change throughout life. And I just thought that was wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for saying it. I mean, we thought about, there's a scene, obviously, in Riley, Joy is the main character, and so Joy is kind of center stage at the wheel, so to speak. And when you cut to mom, and people have asked us about this, or dad, there's a different emotion sitting in the center, and that really was there just to show that Joy might have a tenure that expires. I mean, you don't always, you don't always have the same emotion driving you for forever. People change and grow, and part of the messages of the film is that that's okay. And that's life, right?
Exactly, exactly. We're going to take a look at a scene right now with Joy and Disgust, and we'll maybe talk a little bit after that scene about the reaction in the autism community.
Great.
Acting so weird. Why is she acting so weird?
What do you expect? All the islands are down.
Joy would know what to do.
That's it. Until she gets back, we just do what Joy would do.
Great idea. Anger, fear, disgust. How are we supposed to be happy?
Hey, Riley, I've got good news. I found a junior hockey league right here in San Francisco, and get this, tryouts are tomorrow after school. What luck, right?
Hockey?
Uh-oh, what do we do?
Guys, here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong.
Should we ask her?
Let's probe, but keep it subtle so she doesn't notice.
So, how was the first day of school?
She's probing us.
I'm done. You pretend to be Joy.
What? Okay.
It was fine, I guess. I don't know. Oh, very smooth. That was just like Joy.
So there's a little example about going inside the parent's mind and seeing a different setup, and it was just great. And so Jonas.
Yes.
So did you have any idea as to the amount of love and praise that you would get from the autism community?
No, I mean, it's such a great thing to hear, and we've read a little bit about it, and I know from your organization, it means so much to us, because obviously we set out to make, we just wanted to make a good film and a fun film and a film that was relatable and entertaining. Obviously, it was coming from an emotional, personal place. This movie was based on an observation of our kids. Pete came into work one day, Pete Doctor, and he has a 11-year-old daughter at the time when we started, and he had noticed, and I've seen her grow up, that she had changed, not drastically, but just she was once happy and bouncing around the studio and full of energy, and she 11 years old, and she, put on her headset and her hoodie and just was different. He said, what's going on inside her head? And we thought that was a really sort of sad, but also truthful narrative question that if done right, we could answer that in a movie. I guess like all of our films, we're just trying to create relatable characters that are fun and entertaining, but also truthful. You know what I mean? Whether it's an old man that flies his house away, or cars that talk, or bugs, or humans, or emotions, just something that's gettable and clear. And when we sort of heard that the autistic community responded and saw it the way we see it, it meant a lot to us. It's hard to even put it into words, to be honest.
Well, I think every film that you guys do is a film that inspires people, that touches people. I didn't expect. I got a little story here. A little segue here.
Good.
When my dad took me up to Pixar to see Up, he sat me down, and I was a big Pixar fan. From the first film, from Nemo. And that was the first film, right?
Toy Story was the
Toy
first.
Story, I'm sorry. So I was a big fan from Toy Story. But, I sat down and I watched Up, and I was weeping during the montage of their life together. I was weeping by the end of it. I looked at my dad and I said, why didn't you warn me about that? Because I was embarrassing myself. But I think, your films touch on something that a lot of other films, don't take the time to really look at. And that is, the really, truly important things in life, and what makes us who we are, what makes us individuals, what changes us as people, for good or bad. And you're not afraid to look at that. And I think you really see that in this film, in Inside Out. The main character is going through some very, very deep, profound changes, and you really take a look at that and you tell a beautiful story that is uplifting and very touching. And I think, and kudos for that.
Thank you. It's very nice and kind words, and we appreciate that. You know, your father, and you mentioned casting, and one of the things, whether this has anything to do with it or not, I think it does. I remember talking to your father, at our first session, and with Pete, and we had the very same conversation with our cast on this one, with Amy Poehler and Louis Black and everybody's, and that is when people come to an animated movie, I think, to act, they think in their heads like they have to put on a voice and do an animated voice. And we always say, no, we want your voice. We wanted your father's voice in that movie as a real person. We didn't want to push it and caricature that. We would let the visuals do that. We were after sort of truth and real people. Again, even though their emotions are doing things that, you can't do in the real world, we are after those little bits of true life that I think it's that's what connects to people. I mean, they're, in Finding Nemo, you mentioned Nemo, and they're little fish, but people respond to them as a father and a son. And I don't know, we as animators, we're observers, and we try to find those truths and put them into our films because that's what makes them important to us. We knew Pete Docter was a great friend of a gentleman named Joe Grant, who was one of the great writers and artists at Disney, worked for Walt Disney. He wrote Dumbo along with another guy, and we got to know him by proxy through Pete. I got to know him, and he told us something that we always remembered, which was, when you're making a movie, when you're so lucky that your job is to make these movies, you always want to ask yourselves what you're giving the audience to take home with them. You're asking the audience to come and spend 2 hours or 90 minutes or whatever of their time, and they want to be entertained, but you also want to give them something that will, rattle around with them and be meaningful. And those are the movies I grew up loving, Dumbo and Pinocchio and all those movies I grew up with as a kid. And that's, I'm not saying our movies are that at all. I'm saying that's sort of the bar we set for ourselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think they are that. I think these films are the new classics. They are the films that will survive, that will be with us, that will mean something to our generation and the generation coming up, for the next 100 years. And Dumbo, you mentioned Dumbo. Dumbo is a great example. Dumbo is probably one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in its telling of a story of an orphan, basically, and an orphan that's taken away from his mother. And it's a beautiful, complex story that is very uplifting at the end. And you guys definitely follow that model so well. So we're wrapping up here, and I just want to thank you for joining us today. And I'm a huge fan of Pixar. I'm a huge fan of you, Jonas, and I'm a huge fan of Inside Out. And I just want to tell you a little story. I was with my father this morning, and we were driving somewhere, and I told him I was going to be talking to you, and he said, "Oh, give him a big sloppy kiss from me." So I'm miming a big sloppy kiss for you. And there we go. And he also
him. I love the whole Asner family. You guys are part of the Pixar family. You know that, and we love you guys and what you do. And I'm honored to be your guest today. I really am. So thank you,
Jonas. Guest number one.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it.
And my dad also says anytime you want to call him, to reprise the role of Carl for up to, he'll answer the phone.
He'll answer the phone. I will call him. I look forward to seeing him soon.
All right, Jonas. And say hi to your parents for me.
I will. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonas.
Bye-bye.
Jonas Rivera from Pixar. If you haven't seen the film yet, go see it. It's called Inside Out, and it's amazing, and you will enjoy it. I promise you. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, you're going to meet my better half in a segment that we're going to do every week called Family. So we'll be right back with Nava Pasquitz.
Here, mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and you know, you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really, what you've fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, you know, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. In your life, there's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, and that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it. You know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very, you know, very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
To bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Hi, welcome back to On the Spectrum. I'm Matt Asner, and this show is about hope. Like I said before, hope is my favorite four-letter word. We just spoke to Jonas Rivera, and I've got to say, like I said before, if you haven't seen Inside Out, you have to go see it. There is something about that movie that that touched me. And like I said, we brought 3 children with autism to that film, and they loved it. Absolutely loved it. So thank you, Jonas Rivera, for coming on the show, and good luck in everything you do in the future. So we're going to talk right now with my better half, and she is an incredible lady that I'm lucky to call my wife, and she runs something called the Friendship Circle in Pacific Palisades, which is an organization out of the Chabad. And we're going to do a segment every month. Every month we do the show. I think I said week before, but it's a month. I'm doing a monthly show, not a weekly show. Let's get that straight. But I'd like to introduce you all to my wife, Nava Paskowitz Asner.
Thank you,
And
Matt.
she's going to be a part of this show every month. And we're going to talk about family and about things that drive us crazy and things that threaten us. And it's going to be really personal, and right?
Yes, absolutely.
Are you ready?
Try to give people hope.
Are you ready to do that?
I'm as ready as I'll ever be.
Okay. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what do we do for the first? What's the first thing that we're going to do together on the show? And I thought, you know what?
It's a family show, Matt.
Okay, it's a family show. We've established that. It is a family show. But I would really like to talk about how we met.
Okay.
I think that would be the perfect origin kind of thing.
Okay.
First episode, first issue kind of thing. So let's talk about how we met. So
Do you want me to, or you're the host.
I'm the host, so I'll start.
Okay.
So I was sitting at my desk one day, and I get this phone call. Now I've known Nava's brother Adam for 16, 17 years now.
Long time.
And Adam was my neighbor and lived right across the street from me.
Mm-hmm.
And we became really good friends. And when I got the job at Autism Speaks, we spoke. And Nava, Eddie, her son Eddie,
My youngest.
her youngest son Eddie, had just been diagnosed with autism, like a month after I was hired.
Yeah.
A month.
It was very weird, the timing of it. It was very, I think that had a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Of everything that happened, it was kind of like everything domino faded from that time frame.
Exactly. In my job as executive director, I talked to a lot of families. I talked to a lot of moms that had just gotten a diagnosis, and that was something I did quite a bit of.
Yeah.
So I get a phone call from Nava, and she's very nervous and
crying
and
yeah.
very upset, and we had a great talk, about an hour probably.
Longer.
Longer?
It was a long
Okay.
time. Because I remember saying to somebody, here this huffy, head of this huge organization, he's a friend of my brother's, but he doesn't know me. And you took a crazy amount of time just listening to me and giving me hope, by the way, in a very dark time in my life.
Well, I was in that position myself, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. I had my dad to talk to, who had gone through it with my brother.
Right.
But it was different. I did not have that voice of reason. I didn't have that voice of hope. Mm-hmm. And so whenever someone called me to talk to me about that, I would stay on the phone with them for forever.
So I wasn't special.
No, but you became special. No, I mean, you were special because you were my friend Adam's sister.
Right.
And that was
And you knew my
special.
dad also.
And I knew
Ed,
your dad.
Ed and my dad were friends.
Absolutely. And so so we really started as a kind of a
Family show, Matt.
volunteer kind of.
Yeah. No, I think from there, the biggest step for me was that you recommended I join a mom's group, a support group, and that really changed my whole life.
Yeah.
That changed my whole life to have the support and the just the experience of moms like Priscilla Picard, who had been through this time, and You know, I was going through a horrible divorce at the time, and so a lot of the moms, 85% divorce rate, as you know, in
Yes, I
special
do.
needs families. And so we were both going through not just, you know, my similar experience with Eddie, but we were both going through divorces. And I think, and I know you'll agree with me, that we became best friends for
Yeah,
a
we
long
did.
time.
Yeah. we did.
And we would talk for hours about things that I think a typical boyfriend or girlfriend with a typical family could never relate to. You know, you would tell me about your day, and if Will had had a fit that day, and if I was saying that at the time Eddie was nonverbal and he was having tantrums all day long at the time. So it was that commonality that we had that nobody could.
Well, and I think we were emotionally in the same boat, very
were.
much in the same boat.
We were.
And I think we really ended up helping each other and becoming good friends.
Very good
and
friends.
And then it just kind of happened, right? And here we are. Here we are.
Old
Now
married
we're married.
couple.
But we have a large family.
Yeah.
We have a large
6
family.
kids. We have 6 children, 3.75 on the spectrum, and you know, each one of the kids is unique, even the typical ones. But it's a handful. You know, I was telling somebody yesterday that my advice to any parent is to really take the time with your husband or wife and your partner and just have that reconnection once a week, or else that 85% divorce rate is going to, you know,
Well,
increase.
and I do have to say we're lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
Because we do get time together, you know, and I think that's a very special thing. And I would say that to anyone if, you know, there is you know, respite out there, and I would use that respite to connect with your significant other. You know,
Well, it's vital.
It's vital. It is vital. It's vital not to lose that, you know, that part of.
Can I use that as a segue to
Yes.
what you and I together are trying to accomplish with the conference?
Yes. Why don't you talk about the conference? Because
the
I
conference,
think people want to know.
it was like an offshoot of.
But you have a conference coming up.
We have a conference coming up, but it was an offshoot of the mom support group. So we have this monthly free support group for moms, and we have this support group. You can reach me anytime if you need help. And we felt like there was a missing element to it, that it was all about the moms. There was a huge missing piece of supporting the entirety of the family. And by doing, the only way we could do that is to bring in the dad's aspect. And so the expert, Mr. Matt Asner, stepped up. And so with our conference, this coming conference is called Balance. And it's about bringing balance into the family and supporting the entirety of the special needs family. And I'm really proud of it. I'm proud of the fact that we have an element for siblings with an MFT. Carrie Bowers, who's incredible, is going to do a sibling support group. Another dear friend of mine, Maddie Wolf, is going to do a nutritional element and telling us how we can bring different foods into our lives to give us energy when we've been up all night with our special needs child. We have the glorious John Sahakian, who's going to be in the yurt and teaching us mindfulness.
You didn't call me glorious. What's going on here?
Well, you need to be in the yurt more often.
I guess so.
I
guess so.
But no, he's teaching us, he's also teaching us balance and mindfulness and breathing techniques. And I have an upcoming enrichment for moms with John on the 21st. And you can get more information about that on our website.
It's like a John teaser, right?
Yes.
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 Okay. So, you know, I got to commend you on this because I've seen you working on this for months, and I've seen you kind of put this together, and I really applaud you on your vision because I think you've taken something, you basically put yourself into a position where you said, you know what, this is what's needed. As a mom, this is what I needed. As a family, we needed this, and I think you really are taking it to the next level. And I don't think I haven't seen anything like this. So I applaud
Well, I'm
you for
hoping
your,
that we can, you and I together, can bring this nationwide. That we can go to different friendship circles and really show them how to model this program because it's so needed. 85% divorce rate in special needs families, and the Friendship Circle as an organization has always been about supporting the child, and I want to rethink that and have them really continue this kind of full family support in the future, nationwide.
Well, and I mean, there are a few, I've seen a few dad support groups, but there are not many, and the way we're going to do this one, I think is going to be really special.
And bringing surfing into it. I think it's important to, with my background of surfing, I want to make that unique, make us unique in that respect, that we're Pacific Palisades, we're 1 block from Sunset Beach, and eventually turn the dads group into a surfing club,
That's great. You want me to lead that, huh?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
I'll hang 10.
Okay.
All right.
I'll teach you.
Okay, good. Okay, so, are you excited about this this endeavor with me? We're going to do this show
I'm very
every month,
excited.
and
I'm always excited to be with
Now, you have to promise me, though. You have to be honest with me. And
I'm always
when you're
honest with
here at the show, we have to be honest. And we
Okay.
have to, we have to talk about things in an honest way.
No, I agree. I agree.
Right.
People need, I think we can help a lot of people with something like this and get it out there. And, if we just help one family who's going through what I was going through that day, I think we've done a lot.
Well, I mean, I got to admit, when I was going through what I was going through, I didn't think I would be with anyone. So it was a shock and surprise and wonderful and beautiful. So thank you.
I'm happy to oblige.
So the question of the day.
Okay.
First of all, before we leave that, I want you to tell everyone how they're going to go to your conference.
Just go on www.fcbythesea.org and you can find all the information and sign up, and any information that you need, you can call us anytime at the Chabad, and but the website you can get any information.
And how much is the conference?
It's it's $125 per person. However, this is the first year that we are fully vendored, and we have a vendor ID number. So ask your supervisor at your regional center to call us, because a conference is covered by your regional center, your local regional center, and it's made a huge impact on how many people can attend.
That's great. And how does that work?
They would get in touch with their personal supervisor, who's in charge of their case, and their supervisor would reach out to us and say that they were covered. So it's very simple. It wasn't a big deal. There was not a lot of paperwork. You just have to ask for it, because most people don't know that they actually have it covered.
Well, good. That's great.
I'm excited.
And do you want to give them any kind of incentive for signing up for this show? Do you want to throw something
I
their,
think that
their way?
if anybody would be willing to sign up by Monday, that we would be
Well,
willing.
actually, Monday the show we're airing on Monday.
Okay.
So you mean next Monday?
If people sign up by the 18th, then they can receive $50 off. Of their
$50
sign-up.
off by the 18th.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
And they have to sign
$50
up
off.
because especially the siblings component is filling up.
Okay, great, fantastic.
Thank you. I'm excited.
You look very pretty today.
Thank you. So you look very handsome.
Thank you very much. Let's talk a little bit about the question of the day. I want to read a couple more answers, and then we're going to say goodbye and until next week.
All right. Next month.
Next month. Next month. The question of the day, once again, was as an autism parent or an individual with autism, what gives you hope? So I'm going to ask you that.
Oh, that's an easy one for me. I would say what gives me hope on a daily basis is my husband. And the support that you give me on a daily basis, even when I want to strangle you. I know that you're there for me always, and I'm always there for you. And just feeling like even when things get as crazy as possible, and one guy's...
And they do get crazy.
Oh yeah, the two guys perseverating, is that the word, together at the same time, and we just look at each other and kind of laugh.
Yeah.
It's wonderful, and I'm grateful. I'm very grateful for it.
Well, I'm glad to be going through it with you. And I have the same answer, actually.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
So we have a couple other answers. Katerina says that the world will be more accepting and there will be promising future for my daughter and others coming up in age. Then we have Rosie, progress being made daily in research and educating the general public, as well as better outcomes and more opportunities. And then she says, Rosie Reeves, Los Angeles Special Needs Kids Examiner, because I'm going to say that because she wrote it in the body. Then let's see, we have, a lot of these are long. Here we go, here's one. Bianca, progress, heart. Supportive community, heart. Loving family, heart. Invested teachers and aides, heart. Awareness, heart. And acceptance, heart. And those are a lot of hearts.
Really good.
And that's
Blue
a lot
hearts.
of hope.
Blue hearts.
Blue hearts. Oh, you saw it.
No, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah, they are blue hearts.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
You're good. Then Beth. Beth says, seeing all the progress my son Thomas Selby has made
Aw.
over the years, when I
Beth.
don't know who it is, from a nonverbal 4-year-old to a 22-year-old young man who
Wonderful
speaks in front of
Thomas.
250 plus people.
We love Thomas.
Watching him advocate for himself, becoming more self-sufficient, there is hope. And you know what? Thomas is amazing. He's going to be
He's
another
the
guest
paradigm,
of mine.
isn't he?
He's incredible.
He's wonderful.
I
Kid.
love Thomas.
Man.
Let's see here. And of course now it froze. No, there we go. Okay. So then we have Paul, Love, and my dad is calling me for some reason. Tony B, good friend of mine from the Adolescents.
Oh, really?
Band from my youth. Music, of course. Tony
Yeah.
would write that. Michelle, progress, love, and support. Johanna, when Aiden smiles and he is happy, or Joanna, excuse me. Anne, children are wonderful and they grow and change and delight in the small joys of life. And it's so true.
I like that one.
So, okay, so next month we're going to do a big celebration. I'm going to have, let's see, I'm going to have Ed Asner here. We all know who he is.
Aw.
We're going to talk about a big poker tournament that we're having in September, on September 12th, at the Hayworth Showroom. Ed Asner and Friends Poker Tournament.
Excited about that.
I am. Aren't you? You
I'm
don't
not
play
much-
poker.
No, you're the poker
Yeah.
player in the family.
And then we'll also have Kristen and Chris Stills in to talk about this year's Light Up the Blues.
Oh, that's going to be
which
big.
it's a packed show, right?
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
and we're going to play a lot of songs from Light Up the Blues, so it's going to be fun and exciting. And Chris Stills hopefully will play a song on his guitar.
Cool.
For us. So, and then the other thing is we're going to talk about the Missing campaign, the Missing research program that Autism Speaks has, that I feel is one of the most important things at Autism Speaks that has happened since I've been there, and that I'm most proud of, because it's open science.
Yeah.
Because we're taking something, we're creating it, and we're opening it to the world, and we're not trademarking it, we're not we're not
But
claiming it.
giving the opportunity to some little scientists in
Absolutely.
some far off region
In-
who will figure it out.
Yeah.
The same opportunity
Anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'll be talking a lot about that next month. And until then, I'm really glad you joined me for this inaugural voyage. And a little bit of bumps, but I think we did all right. And I'm really proud to be here. I thank Shannon Penrod and the card team for having us in and for giving us the opportunity to inform people about the good things that Autism Speaks is doing, and also to spread some hope around, because it is my favorite 4-letter word, and that's why I'm here. I believe it's fuel for our car, which is our life, and hope is our fuel. So until next month, this is Matt Asner signing off, saying, fill your lives with hope. Thank you.
Come here. No, really. Come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really. Come here. Trust me this time. I won't throw you. No, really. This time, trust me.
If you're happy
know it, clap your hands. Woo! If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Yay! If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, stomp your feet, say hooray. Hooray! Good job, come here. So we just taught that song to him last week, or I did. Daddy, he's outside. Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Who's upside down? Touch your head. Touch your ears. I got you again. Oh, you're so easy. Touch your nose. Touch your eyes. I got you again.
Today, Jack Riley is really playful, but isn't interested in playing with any of his toys. He's more interested in social games. So what Jessica does is integrate his lessons in the play, such as body parts.
Touch your head. What's your name? Good. How old are you? 2. Good job. What sound does a lion make? Roar. Roar. What sound does a bear make? What sound does a Jack Riley make? That's a hard one. I want to see if you'd make up something. I want to see if you'd make something up. What's up, dude? Nice hands? You want me to play? You want me to play? Play? Okay, I'll play. You just have to ask. Suzanne, can I try something?
Yeah.
Can I try having him get your attention? I want to see if he'll actually
Yeah.
generalize. Okay. Okay, Suzanne's going to be in charge of the pillow sandwiches now. If you want them, you need to ask her. Look. Look. Do you want a pillow sandwich? Oh, look at the pillows. Who has the pillows? Yes? Okay. Yes.
Okay, pause.
Okay, we're gonna wait.
Nice waiting.
Nice waiting. That's better. Good job.
Nice waiting.
All right, perfect. Good job.
Nice waiting,
That
buddy.
was much better.
I have a crush on my son. I'm done. We'll watch him later, okay? We'll watch him later. No, we'll watch it later. No. Jack, settle down. Settle down. We'll watch computer later. It's not going anywhere.
Jack Riley is upset because the fun activity to him has abruptly stopped. Transitioning is anxiety-ridden for Jack Riley because he has difficulty in anticipating what will happen next. In general, though, transitioning for kids is abstract and difficult to grasp.
Hey, should we go jump a little bit somewhere? What do you want to do? Should we play upwards? Should we go see Daddy? Ready? Go! Just kidding. Should we go? Should we go? Should we go? Should we go?
Jack Riley quickly gets over being upset once a new fun activity occurs. He now sees that there are other fun things to do. The issue was that he doesn't know that he will have access to something fun again, but by practicing transitioning, he will eventually learn that just because the activity ends, it's not gone forever.
Now I know my ABCs. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? That was Master P. Diddy White Ice Dude. That's who did that.
Wow, is that gonna be your stage name, Jack Riley?
When you grow up, don't be a tool.
Oh man. Vanilla Ice. Wow, that brought me back to when I was a little girl. Very cool.
I love you, Jack Riley.
Jack Riley.
I love you, Jack Riley.
Daddy. Oh my god. Do you wanna go see Daddy? Go see Daddy. Okay. We can go do some stuff with Daddy. You wanna go do some stuff with Daddy? Let's go see Daddy. Okay, we can go do that.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Jack, listen, we don't touch this stuff. That's Grandma and Papa. Papa and Mama. Mama. You never get to meet Mama.
Mama.
Yeah.
Mama.
That's right.
Mommy.
And who's that?
Mommy.
Who's that? Who's that?
Daddy.
Daddy, that's right.
Mommy.
That's right.
Mommy.
You were only a promise then. You were only a promise.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are back in the live portion of the show. I hope you enjoyed, as I did, that Inside Out, that girl episode, and getting to see the fabulous Nava Poskowitz, who is just wonderful, and also to see Matt, who's incredible, and Jonas Rivera talking about Inside Out. What an amazing, amazing film, and how wonderful that we have these things that happen that are so beneficial for our community and aren't necessarily planned that way. I kind of love that. There's a kismet to that. And then, of course, you watch the A Word. Now, normally we start the show with doing the jargon of the day and talking about all of that, but we're going to revert back to the beginning of the show now, and I want to tell you that we are going to be with you for the rest of this hour live, talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. Want to remind you, if you're just tuning into the show, that this entire show is meant to be interactive. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get in touch with us, while I remind you our homepage, autism-live.com. We can't leave that stuff out, right? Make sure that if you want to be writing in on the live feature, all you have to do is put your cursor in the box that says your question, type, hit enter, and that's it. Then you and I can have a conversation, or you can have a conversation with our experts. All right, we love it when you're interactive with us. Now, we do like to normally, as I said at the start of the show, have something we call the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, so that we can begin to understand, what are they talking about? What is, it's just amazing sometimes how much of it can go over our heads, right? And people sit there straight faced and say things to you, and you go, okay, seriously, do you really think that I would know that? Over the years, I have learned that, of course, there's knowledge and power, right? And that sometimes experts sit there, sometimes they're just oblivious, right? Because they're so used to using these terms themselves, and that's fine. Sometimes they do it deliberately to see how much you know and to see whether or not, in some cases, when it's from a funding source, how much they can get away with, because if you don't know better, right? Okay, so today's jargon is functional communication training. We talk about functional communication a lot on the show and about why it's so important that we get functional communication. So let's talk a little bit about what functional communication training is. And I deliberately put a really too long definition in and quoted the source so that you guys could see how horrible it is. If you were to just go and look up in a reasonable book, what is functional communication training, what you'll get is this. Functional communication training, FCT, is a variant of DRA. Aren't you glad that we've clarified that? In which appropriate communicative responses are shaped and maintained as an alternative to maladaptive behavior using the reinforcer that maintains maladaptive behavior, or functional reinforcers, rather than an arbitrary reinforcer. And this comes to us from a long list of researchers, and the direct quote was taken from the International Handbook of Autism and Pervasive Developmental Disorders, edited by Johnny L. Matson and Peter Sterney. Fabulous, right? Doesn't that just make it clear? And we can go on, because somebody out there understands this, right? But not me, and probably a lot of you out there are like me, like, huh? What? What? All right, so let's move on to our working definition. This is the whole reason why we do Jargon of the Day. Functional communication training is rewarding appropriate methods of communicating wants, needs, and concerns to another. The communication can be verbal or nonverbal. Okay, so if we have this basic idea that people behave in certain ways because they get a paycheck, right? And a lot of times we see with individuals who do not have traditional means of communicating that they start getting into what was referred to on the other definition as maladaptive behaviors. We will see things like tantruming, we will see screaming, we will see biting, we will see hitting, kicking, all of those different things. Those are considered maladaptive. They're not efficient at getting what you want, right? But if you don't have a choice, you will go to that, because you have no other ways of getting your needs met. And when we start to work with an individual who's on the autism spectrum who has found those ways of communicating, and by the way, it's a natural phase for people to go through those ways of communicating. We just normally call it the terrible twos, which happens to be the period in time when children are clear about what they want, neurotypical children, clear about what they want, but don't have an efficient way of communicating it. And so we get those terrible twos, right? For an individual on the autism spectrum who isn't getting better functional communication choices, they're going to stay in that method because sometimes it works. Sometimes it does. Sometimes if you throw a tantrum, grandma gives you a lollipop. Sometimes if you throw a tantrum, mom soothes you, right? So if it works and you have nothing else to do, you're going to continue to do it, right? So functional communication training takes all of that away and says what we're going to do is reward when the person is communicating, and usually you decide based on the person's current skills and their current communication abilities, what is the thing that you're going to reward. In some cases, people start out with a picture exchange communication system, PECS for short, where they have these little icons and that have a picture on them, right? The old traditional form, you know, so it might have a picture of a drink on it, and they have little books with Velcro, and they can take that picture out and they can hand it to you, and once they do, that's when they get the drink, right? So they don't have to throw themselves on the floor, they don't have to throw a fit, they don't have to bite you, they have a way of getting what they want. That's functional communication training. Rewarding when somebody does that appropriately. Of course, you have to teach it, and before, as I said, before you can teach it, you have to decide what you are going to teach, and different folks, different things, right? If you've got a child who has absolutely no communication skills whatsoever, they're not making any sounds, they're not pointing, picture exchange system might be something that you go to start with, because it's an easy way for somebody who doesn't have those skills to get it on board. For others, if you've got a child who's pointing and grunting, you might decide to go with something else and start with coax, as we talked about the verbal operants the other day. And for a child who is making enough sounds that they're trying to get to words, we would move that a little bit further along, right? But it is essential, doesn't matter who you're working with, if they do not already have a functional communication system, that before we do anything else, we really have to get functional communication on board. One of the things that we talked about the other day is the MAND. And for kids who have a little bit of language, manding is one of the things that we start with and hit hard. And if they've got sounds and they've got a coax already, they're mimicking sounds, and they may not get it exactly right, but we move to MANS and ask them to request whatever it is they want, and that's when we give it to them. What we see on a chart is before that, a child's challenging behavior is way up here, right? It's like, so many different tantrums and different challenging behaviors is really, really high. And their language and being able to request things, their mand is here. And if we were to look at it in a chart, if we're not changing it, they're clipping along like this. Much more of this and too little of this. But as we increase this on the chart, it makes on the chart what I call the magic X. Because what happens is that this starts to go up, this starts to go down, and they cross each other on the charts, on every kid's chart. As we see those mands go up, the challenging behaviors go down. It's not a coincidence. If I had to throw a tantrum every day to get my lunch, it would be exhausting, right? I don't want to have to do that. I'd rather save my energy for something else. And I know we think that kids have endless, boundless energy. They never run out of it. But the truth of the matter is they'd rather spend it playing and be happy. They would. But if the only way you can get it is by tantruming, you will. You'll spend the energy on that. If we give them a way to ask for the thing that they want, the challenging behavior goes down. By the way, if we were to put that on another chart and put the parent's happiness or the caregiver's happiness, it would go up in direct proportion to how much the mands were going up and how downward the challenging behaviors were going. So functional communication training, we really can't get a lot done until that is in place. Remember that our old ideas about what communication is, we need to broaden and expand that so that we include things that are nonverbal, because it's going to be different for everyone. By the way, though, don't get trapped into the idea that if you begin teaching someone with an assistive device, like an iPad or augmentative device, or you begin with a PEC system, that means that they're never going to get to verbal speech. That just isn't the case. The research does not bear that out. There are children still and adults on the autism spectrum that we have not been able to figure out how to get them to vocal speech. But by and large, much, much more than 50% of the people that get good functional communication training will get to vocal speech. And that's a wonderful thing. Functional communication training, FCT, something very important to know. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you. And our question today, which you guys have already been responding to on Facebook, is how do you know when someone is mad at you? What is it that triggers it? And are you always right when you think that somebody is mad at you? But what are the signals that somebody is mad at you? And the reason why this question is this week is because a lot of times the signals that tell when somebody is fatutzed, as we like to say in our house, are nonverbal, right? Certainly, you know if somebody's yelling at you that they're mad at you, but that's not usually the first thing that lets you know that they're mad at you, right? Sometimes it's where they're looking or where they're not looking. It's one of the reasons why a lot of individuals on the autism spectrum have a hard time with communication, because eye contact is hard, and other people think, oh, you don't like me or you're mad at me if you're not making eye contact, right? Not always accurate. But, you know, there are lots of different ways that we look at somebody's body language, their facial expressions, their hand language, the way they're breathing, to see if they're mad at us. And in coming weeks, we're going to be looking more and more at some of those nonverbal cues, because it's hard for our kids on the spectrum to read those nonverbal cues. Let's face it, it's hard for all of us, but it's extra hard for them. Okay, and it's all a part of language. It is. Now, our topic for this entire week is building language skills. This includes verbal speech when possible, right? As we said before, it includes nonverbal speech and functional communication. So all of those things together are really important to build language skills. And hopefully we'll have a little bit of time in the next hour to talk about that. But coming up in this hour, we got a couple of really wonderful things that are happening. As you know, we just saw On the Spectrum with Matt Asner. That portion of the program's already over. If you missed that, you can watch that on our YouTube channel. But we have Sarah Gershfeld from Love My Provider, who's going to be with us in just a few minutes, covering the topic, questions to ask your service provider. And then at 11:40 Pacific time here, very excited, Dr. Jed Baker is going to be with us. He is the author of the new book that's about to come out, Overcoming Anxiety in Teens and Children. Oh my gosh, you guys, great book. And he's going to be with us, talking with us. If you have some questions for the doctor, send them in now on our live feature. We're going to take a break and go to Love My Provider TV. This is a new segment that we're doing here on Autism Live featuring Sarah Gershfeld from Love My Provider. And today she's talking with us about 8 questions to ask your service provider. Here's Love My Provider TV.
Welcome back to Love My Provider TV. This is our weekly segment where we're going to be helping families find the best providers, and hopefully we can help you answer some of your questions. Today what we're going to talk about is how to select the perfect special needs provider. About a year ago, I wrote an article for the Huffington Post that asked 8 important questions that every parent should ask when choosing their provider. So what I'm going to do today is talk to you about those 8 things. The first question that you should ask is whether the organization you're going to work with is certified or licensed. There are a number of organizations that make sure that these companies meet the basic requirements of what it means to be ethical and sustainable. So what we want to do is just call and ask whether they meet any of the 4 following accreditations. The first is the National Association for Education in Young Children. These are just memberships that they can have that shows that they stand by whether or not they're doing a wonderful job in the area of child development. The second one is the National Association for Family and Child Care. The third is the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. And the fourth is the Behavioral Health Center of Excellence. If a provider has any of these certifications or badges, then you can be sure that there's at least a third-party system that's measuring whether they're meeting basic requirements. Aside from the actual accreditation of an organization itself, what you want to ask about is also the staff. So the second thing we're asking for today is whether the staff actually have an accreditation or license themselves. If you're looking for a behavioral health provider, that certification would be the BCBA, or the Board Certified Behavior Analyst. You can easily do a quick internet search to find out whether your clinician actually has a certification. You can also do the same for an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, or a marriage and family therapist. Most of those can be done easily in a quick search, and if you're having trouble finding it, even a quick search on Google of the clinician's name can probably help figure out what certifications or licenses they have. The third question you want to ask is whether the agency does professional development for their staff. Although there are a number of staff that are highly qualified, I've seen more often than not staff that have joined an agency but don't stay up to date on the research and the literature. What you want to do is ask the clinical director whether they provide development opportunities for their staff. The first thing that you can do is ask whether they do continuing education credits. So some agencies might actually send their staff to conferences or trainings. Some might actually do it in-house, or they can even use an e-learning. All of these are perfectly acceptable, and I've personally found that agencies that have therapists, supervisors, and directors who go through this continuing education are happier, more informed, and tend to have more satisfied families. The fourth question you want to ask is about the experience of the clinical director. Even though when your child is working with a therapist, you might have direct access to the therapist or the supervisor, the clinical director is still someone who oversees the entire program and sets the culture of the company and the clinical structure. So what you want to ask is whether the program director has high staff qualifications, whether they've had experience of at least 10 years, and what they do to maintain quality within the agency that they're working for. The fifth question that you want to ask about is staff turnover. As we know, being a therapist could be a very, very challenging job. So what I like to ask when I'm matching a family with a provider, I like to ask them what they do to ensure that their staff are happy. This can be anything from monthly rewards to making sure that the staff are heard, but staff turnover is something that's a big problem. You can also just flat out ask, how often do your staff usually stay with you? If a staff member has been with the agency for at least 3 years, you're probably in good shape. I tend to get nervous when placing a new therapist on a case if they've only been with the agency about 6 months. The sixth question you can ask about is the staff to participant ratio. Especially if you're doing a center-based program where you're dropping your child off, you want to do research about your child's age range and what the ratio should be. In a typical classroom, you can see anywhere from a 1 to 10 teacher to student ratio, or even 1 to 20. But with our special needs kids, we want to make sure that it's age appropriate and developmentally appropriate to what they need. The seventh question I like to ask is how they make sure to get feedback from either family or staff. A lot of providers that have systems in place that allow them to look internally are able to find problems before they become into something bigger. So I like to ask whether they have a grievance policy and what the policy is if a family member or a staff member isn't happy with a certain situation. Even if the provider doesn't have a formal grievance policy but is able to tell us that they deal with each matter very particularly, that's still great. And the eighth thing is ask if you can visit the provider in person. You'd be surprised how many families don't take providers up on this option. Instead of having this conversation over the phone, ask if you can schedule a meeting with a clinician, come into the office, see the facility, and get a feel for the people. At the end of the day, your happiness with your child's provider is so much about fit. So we're happy to help you answer all these questions and to find a provider that meets your needs. Thank you, and we hope to see you next week.
Welcome back. And so that was Love My Provider TV. We encourage you to check out Love My Provider. It's a wonderful resource to be able to look up all the things that you have to do in life and see, is this somebody who is good with dealing with our kids? Where should I go to get my hair cut? Where should I go to get my child's hair cut? Parents leave positive reviews for providers that they have found to be wonderful. I love that it's got that positive slant. It's not the place to go and complain about people who've not done it the way you wanted it to, but to showcase people who are demonstrating that they are really good at dealing with our community. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's growing in more and more cities. I want to encourage you to check it out, lovemyprovider.com. Sarah's going to be with us on a weekly basis. So in just a few minutes, we are going to be joined by Dr. Jed Baker, and he is an amazing author. We're going to talk about some of his other books that he has had on before, but truly amazing book that he's about to have come out in August from Future Horizons, Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. Is this the book we need, or is this the book we need? So we're going to have him on in just a few minutes, and you guys can be continue sending in your questions to us on the live feature. But I promised you yesterday, I'm going to get a chance to talk about geocaching and what that is. I had certainly heard of geocaching, but I didn't know what it was. And I'll be honest with you, the other day, my son said, I'm bored, right? It's that summer thing. I'm bored. And I was Googling, what to do on a summer day with a 12-year-old boy. What are my options? I don't want to go to a theme park. I don't want to do something that's 4 hours long. I just wanted something fun to do, and I didn't want to spend a whole lot of money. And one of the first things that came up was geocaching. And I thought, well, but how far am I going to have to drive to do this? Well, it turns out that, first of all, it's free. And it's all over the place. So you can download the free app on, at the iTunes store, or you can do it in the Android, it's for both, okay? And then if you allow them to have your location, it will tell you all the geocaches that are close to you. Well, the first one that I saw was around the corner. And I thought, how can there be something around the corner? And they have a video that you can watch that basically it's a treasure hunt. And it's happening all over the country. And you can participate as somebody who's going to look for the treasure or somebody who's leaving the treasure. And you put together, and it could be small, it could be huge, it could be whatever. And basically all it entails is some sort of a package. And in it, the real reward is finding it, and then you get to leave your name and what day you found it, right? But sometimes people put a little treat, but if you take the treat, you have to put one to replace it, little fidget toys and things like that. So I thought, well, this is great. There's one around the corner. My son and I are going to go find it. It's just going to be a quick thing before we go to the farmer's market, which is what we do on Sunday morning. So I was telling him about it. He watched the video. He got all excited about it. And this is my advice to all of us that, how often do we talk about this on the show, that we need to set ourselves up for success? So if you are going to take a child who is on the autism spectrum geocaching, my big advice to you is make sure that the first one is rewarding. And how do you do that? Go and find it yourself first so that you know where it is, because what it does is you press the little button on the app and it gives you a clue, and it tells you about where it is, and you use your GPS and it tells you when you're getting close. But when you get within, I think it's like 30 feet, it tells you to turn the GPS off and start looking for it using the clue. And then if you can't do it from the clue, then there's a hint, and it's really, some of them are harder than others to find, and it gives you information about how much do you have to track, because some of them, it can get quite dangerous where you don't pick a hard hard one, pick an easy one, but even then, go and find it yourself first, because we went to go do the first geocache, and little did we know that somebody, like, you know, whether it was somebody playing the game or not, the thing had already been taken and removed. So there was no reward to find it. We were out there for 2 hours in the blazing hot sun. I didn't pack any water because it was around the corner. I thought it was going to be fast. By the end, we were just two people just at each other until somebody finally came up to us because we looked like, you know, two people who had lost something. We had our phones and we were doing this and we were sniping at each other. And a guy walked up to us. He said, "Is everything okay here? Are you all right?" And of course I thought, oh, you know, there goes the Parenting of the Year award, because it was not okay. But we finally figured out where it should have been and that it wasn't there. And we did tell the guy, you know, we're geocaching. He said, "Oh, my wife does that." Whatever. But we went to the farmer's market and we were really unhappy. Both of us were really unhappy, and this was big, big, epic failure, right? And we went to the farmer's market. I said, "I've got an idea. We need a palate cleanse. Let's see if there's one here. We should try one more before we give it up entirely." And sure enough, we found the one at the farmer's market, and it took us all of 1.5 minutes to find it. It was very rewarding. So we're willing to go and do it again. But I will tell you, if you're going to do it, find the first one on your own and then take your child to find it so that you'll be able to give them clues and they'll find it reinforcing and you won't have that bad taste in your mouth. Geocaching, it's free. It's something that we can all be doing with our kids. It helps them to think and plan. It's a good executive function thing because they're clues and they're having to use the technology to find it. It's really kind of exciting. Geocaching, give it a try. Okay, we are going to take a break here, and when we come back, we have Dr. Jed Baker, and he's going to be talking with us about his new book that is not out yet, but it's getting ready to come out. I guarantee you they're going to fly off the shelves. You're going to want one. Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. How desperately did we need this book? We're going to talk with Dr. Baker in just a few minutes. Stick with us. Mid-swing on this wonderful day, this wonderful walk with Mr. Matt Asner. Talk to us about today's walk. Do we have any facts, figures, numbers, or just pure emotion?
Just pure emotion. I'm about to get the numbers. We'll see what it is. Okay. I think it's probably close to 1.6, probably. That's my feeling. But it's incredible. We had 55,000 people plus here today, and you know, I you know, honestly, I've been here 7 years. It gets better and better and better. So.
And really what you fostered here today is hope. I know that's your favorite four-letter word.
Where are we without hope?
Where are we?
Really, I mean, seriously, where are we without hope? Hope is everything. Hope is eternal.
This is a pretty big event. Every year I love it. What does this event mean to you?
Well, I just think it's great that you see so many people coming out to support, you know, autism.
So we're here with Max Burkholder. There's a whole community of people that are going to love you no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, and that's the autism community. Are you okay with this? Is this a good thing?
I'm pretty okay with it. This seems to be a pretty happy, supportive community.
Well, what did you learn about autism through portraying this wonderful character?
Sort of the individuality of it, you know, like with autism spectrum disorders, a tendency is to sort of generalize everybody with sort of the same degree of affliction as sort of exactly the same, and very, you know, very generalize them a lot. But something I found while just talking to everybody, and that I tried to put into the characters, just the sense of individuality that all of them have, everybody has. And so at a certain point it became not really even portraying autism, it just sort of became portraying the character.
I want to say thank you on behalf of everybody for what you do.
That's very sweet.
to bring awareness and to raise money. That's a tremendous, tremendous legacy. But as a dad, you've got other things that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
I want to know, as a family, if you have any advice, what's been something that's been helpful to you personally?
You know, get your autistic kids out in the community. I mean, my son's got a guide dog, so he goes to a lot of cool places. He surfs, he skis, does gymnastics. He's actually trying Hebrew school. I'm not quite sure if he knows what's happening there, but he does all kinds of cool things, and he has a lot of friends. Right now, most of his friends are the adults who take care of him, and over time, hopefully he'll have more friends who are his age, and you'll see him walking around, and people won't be nervous around him. The dog's been very helpful with that. It's like the dog is like the most infectious thing in the world. Like, everybody wants to be near the dog, and he sees that, and he gets some of that affection laid onto him. So as a family, you know, we're just there to support Tyler and make him happy.
Welcome back to Autism Live. If you've been watching the show this week, you know I've been really excited all week long for our next guest, Dr. Jed Baker. He is an amazing author and the director of the Social Skills Training Project. I want to talk about a book that he has that's about to come out that's called Overcoming Anxiety in Children with Teens, but you should know that he's got a long list of books that I think will be of interest to all of you. Social Skills Training for Children and Adolescents with Asperger's Syndrome and Social Communication Problems. Preparing for Life, the complete handbook for the transition to adulthood for those with autism and Asperger's Syndrome. The Social Skills Picture Book, the Social Skills Picture Book for high school and beyond. No More Meltdowns. This is an amazing book, and in a little while I want to talk with him too about the No More Meltdowns app that he has. So a gentleman that is widely respected in this field of autism. Dr. Baker, thank you so much for being with us. I didn't even mention the book No More Victims, a very important book that we want to encourage people to get as well. But Dr. Baker, thank you for being with us today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
Well, I want to start with, there were so many questions that came in that had to do with this one particular question. People worded it in different ways, but basically they want to hear from you about when is there enough anxiety from an individual, a teen or a child, that we should begin seeking some sort of answer and some sort of treatment? This seems to be one of the biggest questions there is.
Yeah, it's a hard question because anxiety is a part of life. It's not an appropriate goal to rid ourselves of all anxiety. We all have to live with worries and anxieties from time to time. So there's certain good skills that I think one could get from my book and other books as well to help people cope with the typical and daily anxieties of just being alive. Now, if there is a tremendous interference with functioning, a youngster can't go to school anymore, they're not able to be with their friends, they're not able to interact with people. If there really is some interference with functioning, then it might make sense that beyond what a parent is trying to do on their own, they might want to seek professional help and go see a therapist and go get some treatment and maybe even a consult with a psychiatrist potentially. So, but a lot of what we're talking about in the book are things that people can do day to day just to cope with maybe what we would call more normal anxiety, more sort of day-to-day anxiety.
Yeah, I think this book is a must for everybody on their bookshelf. We should mention it isn't out yet. It's coming out at the beginning of August from Future Horizons. And you can get that book. I think you can pre-order it at www.fhautism.com. And again, it's called Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. I've had an opportunity to spend some time with the book this last week, and it's just, I think, an amazing, amazing piece of work. Somebody this week referred to it as a masterpiece, and I don't think that they overstated it. It's really comprehensive and so well written for those of us who don't have degrees in psychology, Dr. Baker. I think you did a great job of making it so that we can all access it easily.
Well, you're very kind to say. I mean, there are lots of really good books out there that sort of tell us the science of treatment of anxiety, but there are not always a lot of books that say, well, then how do you win people over to do what we know works. We know gradual exposure, gradually facing fears works. That's cognitive behavioral treatment of anxiety. How do you get people to do that? What do you say to kids? How do you win them over? That's the trick. That's the art of therapy. So we try to address that in the book.
Yeah, and you've got great features in the book, that you've got scripts that you show us. You use examples of kids that you've had interactions with. We're going to talk about what a fear ladder is and what the reward ladder alongside of it is. But really great graphics that help us to get to the nuts and bolts of what we have to do. So how do we win somebody over to be able to do that exposure that you were talking about for cognitive behavioral therapy? How do we win them over? And talk a little bit about those fear ladders.
Yeah, well, most of the kids that I see, say, who are high functioning kids, are not necessarily coming in because they want therapy. They're coming in because their parents want them to have therapy. So I might start with someone who's not so on board with the idea of getting help or seeing their anxiety symptoms as getting in the way, even if it's taking them 5 hours of sort of an OCD ritual before they can go to school. The parents see that as a problem, the child may not. So the first step with most of my clients, regardless of diagnosis often, is to talk about their strengths and their abilities and sort of an optimistic future, what they can do with their lives with their strengths and their talents. And from that position, it's a little easier to digest and talk about maybe some challenges like anxiety symptoms that might get in the way of reaching their goals. So if we start from a really positive place, that the child isn't damaged, there isn't something wrong, there's a lot right about that kid, then I think it's easier to talk about, well, we just don't want those challenges to get in the way. And challenges are not things necessarily you have to overcome. You don't get rid of all anxiety. You just have to get it to a point where it's not in the way anymore, right? So that's one way to start. The other way is to really educate our clients, kids and adults, about anxiety, about their alarm response, their limbic system, and that sometimes we have true alarms, but sometimes we have false alarms. So if a car is coming to hit you, that's a true alarm. You have to get out of there. It's great that you have this alarm system that says, danger, danger, get out of there. But sometimes we have false alarms. We're afraid to talk to people who are really kind and will treat us nicely. We're afraid to, maybe go to certain places that really are not dangerous and quite safe. We're afraid to touch things because we might get a germ but there really is no danger. We're not going to die from that germ. So these are false alarms. So I think part of the beginning of treatment is winning people over to the idea that part of their brain might sometimes not tell them the truth. There might be an alarm system that goes off. They have real symptoms, but the out there danger isn't necessarily, a real danger. And then the issue is, how do you get people to then slowly confront those fears? And that's what a fear ladder is. Most people, can't necessarily face their biggest fear. So you have to break it down. If I have a youngster who, say, is selectively mute, they can talk, but they're afraid to talk to their kindergarten teacher. We're not going to start out by asking them to talk. We start out with little steps, maybe just indicating yes or no on a piece of paper, a check mark, or nodding yes or no. Maybe when whispering to a friend who can talk to the teacher for them. And then the next rung on the ladder might be whispering to the teacher. And then the next rung on the ladder would be talking in an inside normal voice to the teacher, and so on. And each step of the ladder, the child really gets to decide, are they ready to confront that step? Are they ready to try to face that fear? And then we would offer perhaps an incentive for young kids and kids with less language. They might need an external reward, like they're going to earn a snack or iPad time or some other privilege to face that rung on the ladder. For really high functioning teens and adults, they may not need an external reward. They may just, the intrinsic reward of feeling pride that they successfully confronted their fear may be enough. So that's the fear ladder, and we do things like some cognitive behavioral techniques. We call it Think Like a Scientist. We've developed these Think Like a Scientist cue cards to help challenge some of the worrisome thoughts so that kids and teens can begin to confront their fearful situations. So there's lots of ways to think about confronting worrisome thoughts, but there's just two things that I focus on to simplify all that cognitive behavioral work for kids. And those two things are overestimating how likely it is that something bad will happen, and then overestimating how bad it would happen, how bad it would be if it did happen. So, for example, for me, I fly a lot for work, and over the years, with things that have happened in the news, I've had a little plane phobia. But if I think like a scientist and get the statistics, it's pretty clear the chances of me dying in a plane crash are about 1 in 7.8 million for most of all the major airlines. But I only fly the safest 38 major airlines. Chances of going down on one of those is 1 in 19.8 million. So I'm just, if I think like a scientist, I'm not going to die in a plane crash. It's not the way I'm going to go. And so we create these little cue cards for kids to try to face their anxieties.
And it's wonderful. I do want to point out that in the book, you go through this step by step and give examples so that we don't have to make it up for ourselves as parents or as caregivers. But I do want to say, Dr. Baker, I want to transition a little bit because I'm sure that there are people watching who don't have children who are high functioning and that are saying, well, wait a second, I can't explain to my child, think like a scientist. I could say that, but my child isn't high functioning enough to understand that. And
Yeah.
a lot of times people go, oh, well, this is just for high functioning kids. And I really want to point out one of the beautiful things about your book is that you have an entire section where you talk about our kids on the autism spectrum and anxiety and what to do for those kids who don't have the receptive language to talk it through. Talk
Right.
to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so kids without that language capability, not only can they not tell us necessarily specifically what they're anxious about or how anxious they are about a situation, we can't necessarily use words to convince them to face those fears. So one of the things we have to do is be really good observers to understand the triggers to their anxiety. So I speak about that in the book as well as a previous book, No More Meltdowns, where we really are detectives looking to see what situations, which might be in the environment, overwhelming sensory experiences, or certain people, or situations that trigger anxiety, as well as internal issues like pain, a sinus infection, things that they may not be able to tell us that are happening internally that might lead to anxiety. And then the issue is, how do you get, once you can identify that anxiety, how do you get someone to either face it? Now, a lot of times we don't have to have them face it. Like, it's not crucial that every kid go to an amusement park. Like, that's not a crucial thing. But it might be important that each kid get to school if we can. And so then we want to be able to have a youngster gradually face those fears. I have a really nice example in the book of a youngster without much language who was diabetic. And he needed to get his blood drawn in order to check his glucose levels, but he was really afraid of the needle prick. And so the researchers that did this really, I think, innovative design created a fear ladder, but the kid couldn't tell you specifically what his level of anxiety was. But what they did is they could approach him with the little needle, and they had asked him to keep his, they drew a little outline and had him put his hand on a table and keep his hand there. And they went to see how far they could go close to his hand with the needle before he would pull away or become agitated. So the first distance was about 60 centimeters. That became the first rung on the ladder. They said they could reliably go about 60 centimeters away before he would get agitated. So that's what they'll start with. And if he could keep his hand there for 15 seconds, he got a reward, which ironically for this youngster with diabetes turned out to be like a candy or a soda or something, but that's what was really an incentive. And then they were able to get closer and closer to him, keeping his hand there for 15 seconds until eventually they could draw his blood reliably. And so that was a good example of how without language you could create a fear ladder based on their reaction to the sort of feared situation, in this case the needle, and how you could gradually help that youngster face the fear. What I haven't spoken about yet with high functioning kids or those with more challenged language is other ways that we try to reduce anxiety so people can face the fears. So for both kids with lots of language as well as those who have more challenges, there's lots of ways to bring the anxiety down. So we know that exercise, 30 minutes of aerobic exercise, is as powerful, and a handful of studies was as powerful as antidepressant SSRI medications that also bring down anxiety. Now, it may not last for days and days, but if you exercise for 30 minutes, you might get a 4 or 5 hour window of reduced anxiety, and improved mood. Okay? I also like quieter ways to bring down anxiety. So there are all these guided meditations and mindfulness meditation apps that I have kids with and without language using. So clearly kids with language can follow the instructions to focus on something in the moment. That's how mindfulness works. Whether you're focusing on your breath, you're focusing on a sound you hear outside of yourself, the focus on something in the moment relieves us from worrying about the future or regretting the past. And it seems to be related with a sense of well-being. But even kids who are more challenged with their language benefit from hearing some of these guided meditations. They may understand some of the instructions, but the music, the calming sounds, the calming scenes can all bring down that anxiety. It's often can be repetitive, a repetitive sensory input that's calming for them. So there's lots of ways that we can sort of physically lower that anxiety to begin to approach each step on the fear ladder.
And I really appreciate in the book that you go through so many of those and talk with us about, because a lot of times if we take a child on the autism spectrum to a doctor and talk about anxiety, especially in the teen years, they get out the prescription pad. And you talk a little bit about what those things are that we might get a prescription pad for and what they do and what the benefits of them are. But you also give us a wide array of other things that we can try in addition to or instead of, which I really appreciated, Dr. Baker. I also appreciate that in the book, towards the end of the book, you go through all the different types of anxiety and talk a little bit about, because there are so many different things, and like, the social anxiety, kids being and refusing to go to school, you talk about that. So many different things that you get into. This really is a comprehensive handbook for somebody who's having any kind of anxiety difficulties with a teen or a child. And I should point out that it isn't specifically, the way I was reading it, wasn't specifically for kids on the autism spectrum.
That's right.
So for people who have kids that are not on the spectrum, still a great handbook. But I love that you have included our kids in it and given us a roadmap for those of us who do have kids on the spectrum who are facing even bigger challenges.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is in the general population, rates are anywhere from like 1% to 11% for some of the different anxiety disorders in kids and teens. But if you look at kids on the spectrum, the rates are anywhere from 11% to 84%. Of kids who are really high functioning with autism may have a comorbid anxiety disorder. So the book is for everybody, but we're talking about kids on the spectrum tend to have more anxiety disorders than the general population. So it's certainly for our youngsters on the spectrum as well. And you're right. I try to cover a lot of different anxiety situations, from specific phobias, such as phobias of bees or water or whatnot, to social phobia, to panic disorder and agoraphobia, to somatic symptom disorder and OCD. And the reason for that is because you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. If you're going to try to face fears, you really have to know what somebody's afraid of. And then I think your parents really do need to figure out, well, how would I create a fear ladder for my youngster who has OCD of germs, or a totally different kind of OCD? What if the youngster has OCD of obsessive negative thoughts, like they get angry and they have a momentary thought that they want to hurt their parent? Now, they would never hurt their parent, but they're really anxious and bothered by the fact that they had that thought. So how would we develop a fear ladder? How would we develop think like a scientist around those kinds of anxieties? So it's important to have really sort of spelled out fear ladders and think like a scientist cue cards for these different anxiety situations.
Well, it's important for us to get this book. Again, it is not available yet today, but it's going to be available in the beginning of August. People can order it at www.fh, which stands for Future Horizons, fhautism.com. Unfortunately, Dr. Baker, we're completely out of time, but we have to have you back. There's so much more that we could talk about. I wanted to have some time to talk about your app, No More Meltdowns, but we want to encourage people to take a look at that. But will you promise to come back sometime?
Anytime you want me, Shannon,
All right.
I'll be here.
It's a deal. We'll get that hooked up. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Baker. We're really looking forward to when the book comes out.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And again, that
All
book is Overcoming Anxiety in Children and Teens. Thank you to Dr. Baker. Thank you to Matt Asner, Jonas Rivera. We're completely out of time. Nava Poskowitz and to Sarah Gershfeld. I want to say that next week we've got some exciting guests for you, including on Tuesday, some comedians who are doing a benefit for autism. Totally out of time. See you next week. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.